Nice.
It's the best way to explain it. Well, I actually have to go through. There's a lot of bugs in 1.6 as to how inaccuracy is handled. But basically, the first shot after switching or reloading your gun is always more accurate than the follow-up ones, even if you waited, let's say, seconds in between your shots. There's some kind of bug that prevents you from being able to regain that accuracy back.
Son of a bitch.
And it
What is
varies
this?
per gun. Pistols don't see any benefit from it, but the MP5 and UMP are perfectly accurate on their first shot, even if you're jumping. You can hop into 1.6 and test that out if you want.
Four shots. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that this thing is still on.
The mod?
Yeah. Okay, it is.
Yeah, I mean, I just bought the Deagle and it cost $800 instead of $700, so...
Okay, if you want game sound up a bit, there we go.
You still do have to wait a little bit, but it's not nearly as long as it is in the base game.
How do you have like a rough percentage how much it's been reduced?
It's kind of hard to go by since there's a lot of things that's changed. But, let's see. Takes about 4.6 seconds for 90% of the inaccuracy from firing to go away. And the current deagle, I think, takes about 0.8. And the current deagle has more inaccuracy applied whenever firing, so...
Okay, you see this CT over here? From this distance, should I always, if my crosshair is square, because you talked about, wait, no, you talked about decay, you're talking about after the first shot, right? Because sometimes I'm still...
Yeah, the first shot accuracy on the deagle, if I'm going to speed up the rate of decay, the first shot accuracy is more on par with how it is in, say, Source in 1.6, adjusted to CSGO's hitboxes. As I said, this is kind of a hybrid of what's in CSGO and what's in the past games. A bit closer to what it is in the past games, but obviously not as crazy as it was in Source.
I was gonna say, Henry G would be happy.
Really, the long range option, ideally, I guess if you wanted to kind of like bring back how the Deagle is currently, would be in the R8 revolver, but I don't know. Not many people take to that thing very well, and it's really hard to edit it because of its the way like the revolver animations work.
Let's just not talk about that. Gun. If only my aim was better, this would be a faster test. Like a... It's hard to tell, like it's quite difficult I think, to figure out if I think something is better, or if it's placebo and I'm not even doing it faster, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to help out once I get more information out about this. Once I get 3Click's video out, whenever I'm working with him, it should be able to show these changes in a more, digestible manner. Because he's going to actually be able to display this stuff in game, say like, oh look, here it is before and after in terms of like how the decals go through all this testing that he does.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool. I think it's going to be really good for the average user and good for the devs to look at as well. I suppose for their sake, they'll be interested in R8 stuff. But for me, I just don't think the idea of the gun is going to work in this game, like, competitively.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the charge-up mechanic, but I think that Valve's not going to want to get rid of it no matter what.
Oh, they'll never remove it, no. But I just don't think they can balance it in the sense that I don't think the idea of it fits in the game, so I don't see how they can do that. At least the way unless they kind of redesign the gimmick, because it is a gimmick gun, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They're never going to get rid of the gimmick behind it, though, is what I was saying.
Oh, I
know
see.
they're never. I would never suggest removing a gun from the game. That obviously doesn't make any sense. But in terms of the gimmick, they're never going to change that. They can tweak it, but they're not going to get rid of the whole revolver functionality with the fanning and the charge attacks. And one of the biggest limitations of what I can do in this mod is edit animations, and because those things are tied to the animations, like the length of the time it takes to pull the trigger on your charge shot, which is, I think, kind of ridiculous at the moment. I'm not going to be able to really fix that gun. And there's not really too many issues where that's an issue for me as designing this mod. It's really only the revolver and like just if I wanted to say like change up reload times, which aren't really too much of an issue.
What did you do to the moving accuracy of the Tech 9?
It's been increased. I can get you a percentage if you need.
Or the number would work. It was 4.2 or 4.6 or something like that before?
Well, the way that an accuracy move works is that it adds onto your base accuracy. So it'd be like, I think it's like 3.81 plus, see, it'd be plus the inaccuracy stand plus the spread. So that plus 2 plus 9.4 or something like that. Man, I can't remember. I gotta actually pull it up.
Come on, Harold. Did you make any changes to the AWP in terms of accuracy, like just standing accuracy?
Alright, I was just calculating the Tech 9. So the inaccuracy amount is increased by 83%, and that would mean the inaccuracy area is increased by quite a lot, like say 300. Because that was,
wow.
I mean, that gun was an outlier, so it kind of puts it more in line with the other guns. So that sounds like a big number, but it's not even the worst run and gun. You'd think that would make it like the worst run and gun pistol in the game after I've done that, but it's not. It's just because it was so ridiculously low before.
Yeah, it was absurdly low, and it still seems, for someone who's just basically running and spamming as I'm doing right now, it still seems pretty good.
As I said, I want it to be an option, but I don't want it to be, like used primarily over everything else. People need to be able to pick and choose between which situations I need to stand still and be able to hit my shots, or I need to be able to be on the move and make myself harder to hit. Because right now it seems like one thing is weighed a bit heavier than the other, of course, being on the move.
Yeah, I mean, I know Valve's intention is to make every weapon in the game used or viable. I mean, the headshots are still coming in fairly reasonably at like a close to almost medium distance. So, I mean, this to me this works. Just running around constantly, this works. Like making no attempt to fire semi-intelligently, it still does the job for the most part.
And it still needs to be able to do the job somewhat, but it doesn't need to be nearly as good as it was previously, because it was very mindless before. I don't know if it's still too good right now. You're showing that you can do a pretty good job with it, but it is a lot more inaccurate.
It's a start anyway. I mean, I wouldn't change it more than this, because I feel like you would need to, or Valve would need to, like, gain data from this before, going overboard, R8 style.
Yeah, I think a lot of people suggest changes to me, and they expect me to just go full overboard on it. Say, like, the up, they want, quick switching fully back from what it was in 1.6. As soon as you scope, you're instantly accurate. And I feel like, that's probably a bit too far to take something on the first go.
Oh, so what did you do to the AWP then, if anything?
Well, whenever I was discussing how whenever you switch in 1.6, your inaccuracy instantly goes away.
Okay.
It's kind of a halfway point between that. So whenever you scope in, half of your no-scope accuracy instantly clears and the rest decays. So, I mean, you can't quick switch. You can do it at close range, but you still have to, you're a lot faster at gaining your accuracy than you are currently.
So wait, are you talking quick scoping or quick switching?
Quick scoping.
Okay.
As I said, it's not going to be perfect. I didn't want to make it perfect. It's kind of a halfway point. The full scoped accuracy, if you wait all the way through the decay, is also much more accurate.
What happened there?
Yet again, that's kind of something hard to tell. You just have to test it by decals, but it's kind of weird how snipers have so much inaccuracy, even after you fully scoped in. Because each gun had their inaccuracy tweaked whenever they reported over from source to CSGO. But the snipers, for whatever reason, didn't have that change. So they still kind of have... They still have those inaccuracy values from source, but not really adjusted for CSGO's smaller hitboxes. And I guess that was a balancing idea, but I'm not sure about that. That and the movement speed whenever you're scoped in is about in between what it was pre-nerf and post-nerf.
Say that again, sorry?
The movement speed whenever you're scoped in is in between what it was pre and post-nerf. So it was 150 before, it's 100 now, and in the mod it's 120.
I didn't mind the movement speed. I don't know. I mean, one of the things that made the previous movement speed OP was crouch peeking, basically, because you could just pop out of a corner and absolutely wreck somebody who was holding an angle, and I could abuse it like massively, especially on a map like Inferno. I could just massively abuse that, and if I'm abusing it, then it's probably a problem. So I would say the biggest measure, obviously, it makes the faster movement makes it more dynamic and allows aggressive AWPers like Kenny to do more. Because it did basically just destroy his style previously. But yeah, crouch peeking around corners is something that would need to be measured, because looking back, that was massively OP in my opinion. So I think that was a good nerf. So obviously there's a balance to be found there, but got to be very careful about that because it was definitely OP.
There's an issue with that actually, where Valve messed up how like the acceleration works whenever you're crouching. So it speeds up a lot faster than it needs to now. So if you can like move around and see how much faster it goes from like, say, crouching to just standing. And that's something regardless of how I set the value. That's just a bug that I can't adjust to. The speed works fine, it's just the acceleration.
Okay. Man, this seems really fast, like, compared to the normal...
Yeah, well, it needs to be able to compete with the new rifles, because they're going to be a lot better at longer ranges.
Interesting. My only concern is, again, is just the crouch peeking, which I can't really test on this map, but yeah. The quick scoping is pretty sick.
Do you think it's in a pretty good place now, in terms of how much inaccuracy goes
away? I think from this distance, it might not be so consistent, but from this distance, it's pretty consistent, which I think is a good thing. Because if you're, like, there are previous versions of the game where the scout was completely accurate, no scopes, so you could, like, not in serious games, but you could run around and basically, if you had enough experience, just headshot people, I'd say with 60-70% success rate without using a crosshair. But if you have that kind of aim without scoping, then I think you can be rewarded with a quick scope from like a close to half medium distance. That wasn't a quick scope. That was I was already scoped in. That's interesting. I had 3 lined up and I shot the middle guy.
Yeah, and I think it also covers another change that I've made, where the pistols probably aren't going to be as good at close range, because I've gotten rid of that one-hit kill. So it does make the op a bit less, reliant on whipping the pistol out and hoping for the best. You can actually engage players, closer, faster. So a lot of the changes kind of revolve around, how other changes are made. So the op changes probably wouldn't have been made if I hadn't buffed the rifles. I've made some changes to SMGs that probably wouldn't have been made if I hadn't changed pistols, etc. Because I didn't want, say, like anti-ecos to be too powerful. So I kind of like toned down the running gun on stuff like the MAC-10 and the MP7.
Say that again, you turned down a running gun on what? On which ones?
I said I toned down the running gun on the MAC-10 and the MP7.
MP7 or MP9?
MP7.
Okay. Where are the bloody SMGs? Okay. Still seems fair on the MP7.
As I said, I want to keep it an option, but I don't want to make it, the only option.
Ooh. Hmm. Close distance, it seems alright.
Is it so? Well, you think it's too reliable or not reliable enough at longer ranges or something?
Hmm. I guess it depends on how hard you want it to be to kill somebody with it and from what distance, so... I'm trying to think of scenarios where I would use an MP7. I mean, mainly it's anti-eco, where I'm probably going to be between this distance and where this chap is over here. So, I mean, in a world where the pistols don't one-shot, it's probably fine. Although, personal preference, I like the one-shot of those pistols. Because I think one of the issues with the 5.7 was it was too accurate. And obviously it's Tech 9 we know about, so... But again, it's personal preference, so I don't know if that preference is right or wrong in the grand scheme of things, but I liked it. And I think if you look at, I don't know, a map like Cache, where you might be on the site in the default plant with a 5.7 to try and get the one-shots, as Hiko might commonly do. But then you look at, I don't know, I think it was Threat's team ASAR who had like the full anti-eco Molotov push. So, they dealt with the pistols correctly, which not many teams necessarily do. So it changes that. Whether it's for better or worse, I suppose, is up for a jury to decide. I think lack of one tap might hurt these pistols quite a bit too much, in my opinion. But again, you can see what other people think.
It definitely hurts them at close range, but it makes the way that I've scaled the inaccuracy and such makes them a bit more versatile at longer ranges. I'm not sure if you're noticing that with the 5.7, but it should be a lot easier to tap with this thing. The recoil is actually a little bit higher on it, though, so you gotta be careful. It's the inaccuracy that's better. I kind of made it more of a, since I can't really bring in the same benefits whenever I'm scaling things differently, so the 5.7's big feature is that it's really good whenever spamming. And bringing it into something where everything is already pretty good, whenever you're, spamming. If I just brought that in, that would kind of be a bit more mindless than it would, be worth to keep in the game. So I've kind of balanced it around more where it's about, you know, tap shots. So you can really do well at long range. The first shot accuracy's improved on it. Its damage over distance is really good. I think it's more of a, like, it really supports people who can aim well.
I know part of Valve's argument is having the right tool for the job, so they may not necessarily want it to be improved over a distance, and I know they like the idea of, like, let's say rewarding people for getting close range with the pistols, which works and doesn't work in the sense that if the CTs are the ones with pistols, you know, Ts have to push a sight eventually and so on. So in terms of, like, I don't know how they would receive that, but I'd be very surprised if they removed the one-tap feature of the pistols, because if they have like a chart of strengths and weaknesses, I think that they want the close range to be pistols, and then, you know, bigger weapons for longer range jobs, generally speaking, with the Deagle being a special case, I suppose. And
yeah, it's all about starting a conversation, though. I'm not saying that these changes are 100% what needs to go in the game.
Okay. So
I'd imagine with my changes, though, it would probably put a bit more emphasis on something like the Deagle. I wouldn't think it'd be something like 1.6 in Source, where it was what was exclusively used. But if you need to be able to get those one-hit kill headshots, the Deagle is pretty reliable in that, you know, in that respect.
So what have you done to the P250?
The P250 kind of just sees those general changes that I told you about. You know, less damage for those one-hit kill headshots, but it's a lot more consistent in terms of its inaccuracy. Its first shot accuracy isn't that great, but that hasn't really changed. I'm talking about, you know, the follow-up shots. So if you were to say, like, spray at a wall, it would be a lot more, you know, grouped around in that little line than it would be a, you know, a big, massive blob like it is currently.
Yeah, I can see there by the one-up graffiti there's a relatively small spread considering the distance. Slow that down a bit. That's better. Double dinks, all about the double dinks. Okay, let's see, dig.
What do you think about pistol rounds?
I think there's a lot of randomness in them because of the running inaccuracy, basically. So it's hard to have proper duels with them in them at the moment.
I've adjusted the P2000 USP and Glock quite a lot in this, so the the P2000 is essentially the USP from 1.6 in Source in terms of its damage and how its accuracy works. So it should be a lot better at tapping.
USP,
the USPS, well, it's the P2000,
the P2000
is what I was saying, but the USP is kind of a variant on that. So the P2000 fires at the same speed as it did in as the USP did in 1.6, so it has that faster fire rate instead of, you know, the slower. But the USP keeps the slower fire rate that's currently in the game and trades it off for, you know, the better accuracy. So they both deal the same damage, but it's more, you know, choosing, do I want to be more accurate and go for a tap fire playstyle, or do I want to, you know, at the cost of, you know, slowing down my fire rate, which will hurt me at close range, or do I want to be more versatile with the P2000? Because they feel pretty samey at the moment in the vanilla game.
Yeah, I think you almost have to choose the USP at the moment, purely because the situations where you get to double dink someone, though sometimes, depending on the distance, might not be enough.
But yeah, as I said, the damage is going to be the same as it was in 1.6, and of course you couldn't get those across the map one-hit kills on pistol round. And I've gotten a bit of, some people say they don't like that, they kind of like how the current dynamic works. But I can't really give it the high damage if I'm giving it the better accuracy, because then you've got something that's stealing a lot of damage and is also very consistent. So what do you think about that? It can only say one hit kill up to like 650 units in my mod, as opposed to say like close to 2,000 in the vanilla game.
What's the one hit distance on a Glock?
I think it's something, you know, I can look that up for you.
Three dinks.
It's about 550.
Okay, so it's pretty much even. What is
yeah, I've adjusted the Glock quite a lot too. So the Glock is significantly better in terms of its accuracy whenever firing. So I know the Glock is very randomized in the current game in terms after firing. It loses a lot of it. My version is kind of based off yet again how it was in 1.6 in source, but it has a lot more damage on it in terms of the base damage. So you can get the one-hit kill headshot against unarmored opponents at very close ranges. But I think it's closer to say like 200 as opposed to 600 or whatever I said, 550 in the current game.
The range is 200, did you say?
Yeah, something like that on the Glock. But yet again, it's a lot more consistent. That and the burst fire mode's been reworked to be a bit more viable.
Okay, so double dink still works from a reasonable distance.
Are you noticing the accuracy being any better?
It's hard to say with the USPS because it was so good before. So I have no idea, to be honest with you.
The first shot is roughly the same. It's just a tad better in the mod, but it's the follow-up shots in terms of how much inaccuracy is applied whenever firing. So if you just went out and like fully spammed a wall, you'd be able to notice it a lot better.
Okay.
But in terms that also carries over into tapping.
Yeah, with a reasonable fire rate, the spread is really small, considering the distance I'm currently firing from.
So, I mean, do you prefer consistency at the cost of damage?
Well, I think, like, for me, the USP, I had no issues with the USP when I actually aimed at someone's head. So, I think it was pretty good anyway. So with that, I don't really have an opinion. I don't know if I think it needed to be improved compared to other guns. Also, the Glock has almost double the clip size, or what's it called? Magazine. It's one of them. Someone always tweets me every time I say it wrong. I think it's clip, whatever it is. Anyway, yeah,
it's a magazine.
Oh, fucking hell, magazine. Because it's got double the. I suppose the way it is at the moment, the USP has better range and stuff, but the Glock has. I suppose you could say it's better at close ranges because you can just spam it since you have more bullets. But I know people haven't been necessarily very happy with the Glock, but I think it might be a bit difficult to balance perfectly. But I don't have a strong opinion on it, to be honest. I'm like the 5.7 Tech 9 are most of interest to me. I mainly use the P250 because like at the moment, because I seem to be better with it. I think the recoil suits me. I mean, in the actual game, vanilla game. I use a Deagle when I'm not aiming like an idiot. So if someone's trying to do a fast second shot with the Deagle, is it going to be significantly worse every time? Or let's just go through that again.
I didn't hear the question. What was that?
With a Deagle, if I do a fast second shot like I just did there, is that generally going to be better or worse
Than currently in game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say anytime after firing, the modded version is going to be significantly better than the version in game. The only place where the modded Deagle is worse in terms of accuracy is going to be its actual first shot accuracy. So it's not quite, you can't quite, you know, pick people off at those long distances with that first shot, but it's a lot more consistent after firing. As I said, it's kind of taking back how the Deagle was in previous titles, but, you know, bringing in a few options that weren't in there because it couldn't win a kill headshot over, like, I think it was like 1,000 units. But in 1.6, its accuracy was so terrible you really couldn't get that shot off anyway. So yeah, imagine if they did adopt all the pistol changes. I think the meta would be a bit more Deagle heavy.
Yeah, the quick scoping's mad consistent. I don't see a reason to not improve quick scoping with the AWP. Like, that's really interesting to me, because if you can aim in the right place, then reward. Did I leg him? I don't know. Mouse more closer.
Oh yeah, and the Ops Kill Award is $300 now.
$300.
Yeah, so it's back to where the you know, the other guns are.
What is it now? 50 or something?
It's 100 at the moment in the vanilla game.
I think 300 might be too much, to be honest.
Yeah, as I said, I mean, I'm just testing this stuff out. It's kind of hard to balance it, especially since you don't know how certain things are going to affect others. So I've buffed these rifles to be better at tapping. They're going to be able to take out these oppers better. But the oppers need something to be able to, you know, counteract that.
Well, the AWP is still the AWP.
Yeah, but if I just improve the rifles and I don't make any changes to the op, it's going to hurt opping players because it's going to be a lot easier to engage them.
I wouldn't argue with 200, but I think 300 might be a bit much. That's just my opinion, though. What have we any interest in here? So what about the A4?
It's pretty similar to how I've done the AK-47, you know, just better tapping, better bursting, a bit worse at spraying.
Get to here.
So if you want to do, you know, the headshot, then get the body shot at longer distances, it should be a lot more consistent. And can you put cheats on so I can no-scope? I'm not no-scope, I mean no-clip out of your way.
Done. Yeah, I think it's hard for me to see the
this stuff is
changes with
definitely
the-
hard to check from, you know, a glance.
Have you made changes with the scout?
Yeah, it deals a little bit more damage against armored opponents. No more jump scouting, unfortunately. I'm not a fan of that. Its movement speed is a little bit decreased, but in terms of its max scoped accuracy, it's a lot better.
Oh my god, jumping and accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of fans of the jump scouting. I just don't think it has a place in CSGO. And, you know, that's going to vary person to person. What do you think?
I think I feel like what the developers are trying to do with that is, let's say you have a game that was released on a cartridge, like a Super Nintendo, and there's something in the game which is broken, or it doesn't function the way it may have been designed to, but it adds to the game in some way. So, kind of like, I suppose, you could look at this kind of thing in Street Fighter, right? Like, for example, in Street Fighter 4, everyone they might have different jump arcs, but they can jump up, they can jump backwards, I'd say 45-degree angle, roughly, and jump forwards at a 45-degree angle. But Zangief, for example, had a weird kind of glitchy jump, which would be more at like a 30-degree angle, which would make certain things whiff and give him a kind of weird advantage. So I feel like the developers have jumping scout in the game, so you have something fun like that, and I think fun is how they see it. Whereas my opinion was, especially before they updated the hitboxes, where the jumping hitboxes were a mess, my feeling, well, I was grossly offended by it, to be honest, and I made it very clear in most of my casts whenever I saw it. I just thought it was disgusting, to be honest, because you know, you make game design and you design things to work a certain way, and then you put something in which completely breaks that and is counterintuitive, which I think is the worst part of it. Since the hitbox update, I haven't been so offended by it because it's somewhat punishable. That said, you know, I would not be sad at all if it disappeared from the game. I suppose maybe they worry that the scout will no longer be viable without that bullshit. But to be honest, it has a very fast, like, you can run really fast with it, even scoped in. And I think that's pretty strong, because you have the advantage that people have to try and track you to kill you, and you can just cancel your movement and just shoot someone straight in the head. So yeah, I think it's probably for the best if it's gone. I mean, we see fun things like Neo, especially. I think he abuses it the best, like over on Mirage, for example. But I don't think the game should necessarily be about that. So I have no sadness at it being nerfed at all.
Alright.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy scouting because of the running strafing speed. It's just so much fun. Because you can put your crosshair in the general vicinity and then just flick the rest of the way. And do that with reasonable consistency, as I am trying to do. So remind me, apart from jumping scout, what else did you do to it?
I did change up how an accuracy was calculated whenever you're scoping in. I might need to tweak that a bit. I'm noticing that you're having a lot of trouble actually like scoping in and getting the shots off.
That's just my aim.
Okay, because the way that it works currently in the game is it takes the entire no-scope accuracy and it decays it very fast. And the way that it works in mine is like the op, where it cuts off half the no-scope and accuracy but decays it at a slower rate. And what this does is it makes situations where mine's better than the vanilla game, but it's also worse in certain situations. So if you like say, if you scope in and wait the entire time, that's a situation where my mod's better because the you know, max accuracy is a lot better. If you're doing like a extremely fast quick switch in, and I mean a quick scope in with my mod, it's also gonna be better. But I think there's gonna be some moment like in between where it's a bit more inaccurate. And again, I might need to tweak that. If the scout isn't going to suffer that much from having no scout jumping, then perhaps I can just give it like full-on quick scoping if it's needed.
I wouldn't say so, because if you're going to quick scope with the scout, you're probably not going to kill someone anyway. So I don't think it's that important, to be honest. And also,
I mean, at the moment, I'm not actually sure if I'd say that my mod scout is better or worse than it is in the game. It's kind of debatable because certain things have changed that can't really be seen as either a nerf or a buff.
I don't think you even need to quick scope with the scout because it's pretty accurate to me, unscoped. So again, just like maybe it's 1.6. I don't know. I can't remember if it was 1.6 or Source, where it was basically just really very accurate, unscoped. So I mean, the scout really, like, I think a good sniper from a reasonable distance wouldn't even need to scope in to shoot someone, say in the chest, from close distance. You just no scope them.
Oh, one thing that's changed quite a lot, I don't know if you care, but it's the CZ.
Okay.
I'm trying to put it, let's see. Well, first off, the recoil pattern on it is completely different. It fires more in a straight upwards instead of kind of a zigzaggy.
This might be too far away. Almost looks like a smiley face with a bit of hair on the top.
But it's pretty much a straight line upwards. There's a little bit of variance in there, just, you know, as most guns have. So even if you, like, you know, shooting the first 7 bullets on an AK, it's not a straight line. It wiggles a tad. But that's kind of like pseudo inaccuracy, which is in ways pretty good for the game because it kind of allows you to, you know, discourage full-on spraying without actually adding it over into an accuracy, which would then say impact tapping. So that's actually a change that I've put in with the pistols. I've kind of made it so it has more horizontal recoil, but it's just it's not something that goes over into tapping, so it can be used to, you know, dissuade spamming without actually affecting that tapping ability. Yet again, that's more technical stuff, so I don't know how much that means.
Yeah, I don't really use the CZ anymore, so you can ask Flusher about that one.
But yeah, the big changes that I made is it's a lot more, you know, consistent whenever you're spraying. It has those, if you're looking at your reserve ammo, it's got 48 now, so it's more, I don't like limited ammo mechanics, but its damage over distance is a lot worse now. So it's really meant to be a close range gun. You can take it outside of that close range, but you'd probably be best off for something like a 5.7 or a Tech 9.
I think for its intended purpose, that 48 bullets is overpowered for this gun. Because, I mean, it's like a get out of jail card at close range, and I think it's very powerful at close range. Like for me, someone who doesn't even use it, I think I can have reasonable success with it.
It has been completely redesigned though, so I'd understand 48 bullets being overpowered on the current CZ design. But as I've redesigned it, it does a lot less damage, just in general. But it's also a lot more consistent, so yet again, that might not be right. I'm just trying to balance stuff without bringing in these, like, ammo mechanics. It's not really it's not something that I really like relying on. And that's why I've chosen to balance stuff, like, around other aspects. So, you know, the USP is more for the tapping. So it's balanced around this, you know, having the current fire rate instead of having the sped up one that I gave P2000. And if you look, it's got 48 bullets in reserve as well. The the M4A1S has 60 in reserve instead of the 40, because I've tried to find, you know, different ways to go about things instead of using that mechanic.
So this is 6 bullets to the chest.
It's
5 from point blank.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot better depending as to where you're shooting from.
Harold, get out of here. Ooh. Well, I mean, 5, that's a lot, quite a few bullets to the chest, actually. So, In that sense, yeah. I still think 48 is a lot, but there we go.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable.
Especially considering, like, in a world where none of the pistols one tap, I think... Well, let me see. Oh, that's embarrassing.
Oops.
Are you dead? I know you're alive. Okay, cool.
I respawned.
So, like, one shot to the head and one shot to the chest from close range. Or 2 shots from...
Depends as to where you're shooting from. I think if you're, like, really close up, like, point blank, it should be one... It should be one to the head, one to the chest.
I'm thinking, like, Inferno cubbyhole. Someone's coming around the corner and you're like that. I think that versus pistols which can't headshot is a bit of a no-brainer to get to use this basically over everything else.
I might need to tweak the damage on it then.
I think it's just the nature of the gun because it's like automatic, so it's just easy.
Easy CZ?
I come from the world of Z, my friend. EZCZ.
I don't know if that works as well.
Well, to be honest, I mean, you can still tap pretty fast with a 5.7, but I think, you know, when you're strafing out of a corner, it's going to be easier to get more shots in the right place with the CZ. That said, if you miss the headshot, I guess you're going to need to make sure that guy's not expecting you, because you're going to have to land a fair few bullets. So, you know, but then they should have different advantages. So the CZ should be advantageous in that situation. You know, right tool for the god and all that. Let me have a look at the chat. Name this map aim_bots, bots with a Z. Did I go to uni? No, I did not go to uni. After secondary school or high school, if you will, I started studying Cisco stuff for CCNA and Microsoft MCPs heading towards an MCSE. You can Google that stuff. Does this dude eat?
Oh yeah, one other thing about the CZ. In terms of, I said running accuracy. I've obviously scaled it differently for each gun, so the CZ is a bit worse in, say, comparison to something like the 5.7. So if you're talking about, you know, running out of that corner, if you're being more reckless with, say, the CZ, it's going to hurt a bit. You know, it's going to hurt you a bit more if you're reckless.
Yeah, it definitely feels different. Come on! There we go.
So as I said, I can't really give a percent change on how much movement and accuracy has been worsened on pistols, because it's very inconsistent between the guns that I changed.
Jeez Louise. What is this? Okay, Glocks, 5.7s, dualies I don't care about. Did you do anything with dual Berettas?
Yep. They're just generally a lot better now. No real other way to put it. They're priced at $650 now, but that's kind of to go with the new stats that I've given them.
They what, 500 at the moment?
Yeah, they're 500 at the moment, but they're 650 in the mod. So they're kind of meant to be the premium purchase on, say, pistol round. They've got that really high base damage. The armor pin's not as good as something like the P250 or the 5.7. But I've kind of made it so you can bring it in to the rounds where you'd see like 5.7 and Tech 9 if it's your preference. But I don't think it works quite as well. It has a fair amount of damage drop off at distance, and its movement and accuracy is a bit higher than, say, like something like the 5.7.
If you're wondering why only
but maybe it will be a viable purchase. I'm not sure. I know whenever I was testing the mod out last night, people were pretty hyped about it. They were using it quite a lot. But yet again, if you're just playing one match, it's not really a good indicator.
What's the one-shot unit on the pistol round? Unit distance?
I think 900 or 950 or 950 or something.
Okay. That's definitely raid boss territory. Yeah, if you're wondering why only the left one's shooting, it's because infinite ammo is on. And it's not infinite ammo 2 where it empties your clip. I always try to use the dualies in a situation like if you're on cobblestone on the pistol round playing the drop with your back to the drop so people jump in and you can spam. But I always found the 5.7 was more useful for me anyway. I think
yeah,
for
the
most people
Dilbertos
as well.
don't really have much of an application currently. They're a lot better than they were before they even that slight buff. I think that was whenever they nerfed the M41S.
So what did you do to the Krieg, if anything? Because I think it was the most accurate first shot rifle along with the FAMAS, if I'm not mistaken.
The FAMAS? No.
When they've got some similar stat, which is like 4 point something. I was looking at the Excel sheet the other day.
Oh, for the mod or the...
No, just normally.
I think you're thinking whenever you're crouched in scoped mode with the AUG and the SG.
Ah, yeah. Scopes mode, definitely scopes mode.
So yeah, these are still very, very accurate. I mean, more accurate than they are currently. But I don't know how useful they'll be. I didn't want to change them up too much. They have a lot of fans, but they're not really used in competitive scene. So trying to change them up too much could have negative effects on both the fans and, say, the competitive scene. They're kind of in a good place right now, despite the fact that they aren't really used in, say, you know, by pros.
Yeah, I know the Krieg has 100% armor penetration, but...
So that's what I actually changed. I redistributed the damage. And there were several reasons for that. I mean, one, they weren't very good against unarmored opponents if you're comparing it to, say, the M4 and the AK. Because, you know, you put all that, like, extra damage into the armor pin. And that also led to actually worse wall banging, because wall banging goes off of your raw damage and the penetration power. Which is, you know, the penetration power, you can see that in the buy menu, it's just 200% for all the rifles. So yeah, I've scaled, so the damage has gone up significantly on the raw amount, but the armor pin's down to, say, you know, 77.5 like the AK. So you'll be dealing similar damage against armored opponents, but a lot more against unarmored opponents, and it should improve the wall banging of the gun. That's the only really big change that I've made to it, besides the whole, you know, overarching rifle changes with the better tapping and bursting over, you know, spraying.
Do you think it's a big issue, though, what it does to unarmored opponents? Because if you're buying it, I guess you're not buying it for unarmored opponents. And, you know, in a 5-man team, you can have another person dealing with that, should you need to. Like, going first or whatever. Cleaning shit up.
It still doesn't really make any sense that it has 100% armor pin. And it does affect the wall banging ability. And it's just kind of like these little things that kind of weigh it down.
Okay.
Oh, and that doesn't really matter, but now it now fires tracers whenever you're scoped in. There's some issues where tracers don't fire whenever you're in burst fire mode or scoped.
I didn't notice that about burst fire, actually. P90? Anything?
It's pretty similar. I've made a few changes, but I don't know how noteworthy they are. The armor pin went down by like an extremely minuscule amount, but I made the inaccuracy from firing slightly lower. So it's not a nerf or a buff. It's just kind of some weird consistency thing that I did. So I think that if you just tested it out, you probably wouldn't notice any difference. The Galil has pretty standard changes in terms of the rifle. I did scale the inaccuracy slightly different on it, so its spraying inaccuracy didn't get any worse. Because it, to be honest, was already really terrible when spraying.
This is definitely double dinking a lot more than usual.
Yeah, so the Galil definitely sees the most improvement in terms of accuracy. Because I think it really needed it.
This is very strong. I think this is too strong.
I never really thought that would be an issue.
It's very easy to double dink.
More so than, say, the M4?
I mean, I think part of the Galil is just letting the recoil of it for the first few bullets, but I mean, this is
I mean, the accuracy should be noticeably worse than the M4, is what I'm saying. But it seems like you're doing a pretty good job with it.
I mean, look at that double dink, that's insane. It's weird, it's not like every single time double dink.
That's kind of the nature of RNG.
Indeed. But when it does double dink, well, let's see how far I can do it from. What do you think, guys? I think this is a bit insane. It just feels wrong. Like that was a double. Well, that was 3 bullets, I think. I just fired there. Oh shit! I pressed the wrong button. My no clip is bound to R-clear decals, but I'm pretty sure it was 3. That was like Predator style, 3 bullets. That just feels wrong to me.
Yeah, I'll look over that. I'm not exactly... I didn't think that would be an issue, so it's a surprise to me, but I'll definitely look over the values on that.
Like, I don't feel like I need to do much to do this.
I mean, is it just, like, in comparison to, like, how it is currently, or just in general?
I think my girlfriend's calling me, hold on.
Oh, alright.
Could just hear vibrating from a phone. Okay, I have to wrap this up before I get in trouble. Yeah, the Galil feels OP to me. Let me see. Compare to FAMAS. It just feels too strong. I don't know. Galil might be the same. I always thought the Galil was good. I feel like not many people. Oh, look at the tap. That's single taps. That's just me.
I think you're noticing that the accuracy buff more on the FAMAS than the Galil. At these ranges, you would still most likely get the kills on the AK and the M4, but sometimes the first shot inaccuracy would mess you up. And with the FAMAS and the Galil, they really didn't have that good first shot accuracy, so whenever I'm applying this change to this, it's more noticeable because you'd be missing more often. So maybe I need to go about it differently for the FAMAS and Galil. I mean, do you agree with that?
I mean, the tap is if someone doesn't see you coming, right? If you sneak up on someone, then you can go fail, of course, like that. But if you're having a duel with someone, I mean, if you hit the first shot in the head, that's a wrap. Even if you know, like the first 3 bullets have a quite reasonable spread. But I always thought they did anyway. Like, I love me some FAMAS. I mean, I want to go and test normal FAMAS now with this tap.
Yeah, if you're testing tapping, I'm thinking that the mod's going to be a lot noticeably better, because that's kind of where these rifle changes shine in terms of you know, tapping and bursting.
Yeah. With a bit of practice, I feel like I could be a god with this gun.
I mean, in comparison to, say, like the M4 and the AK, they're much better than what the FAMAS and the Khalil are. So is it just through comparison, or is it just them individually?
Well, I feel like, for example, part of buying a FAMAS might be sacrifice to buy grenades on the CT side, you know, on maps like Cache or Inferno or something where you need those smokes and so on. And I know it doesn't seem like there might necessarily be that much sacrifice when you can double dink like that. Just yeah, I think it might be too strong.
Because even with the current changes, I would say that the Khalil and the FAMAS in my mod are like less consistent than the default M4 and AK. But I mean, if we're talking comparisons here, like that, the fact that they are able to do that for their price, then that makes sense in terms of that they're too good.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a combination. Yeah, I'm thinking for the price as well. It's like a...
Because just saying, just on their own that they're overpowered doesn't really make any sense. But if you're doing it by price, then it makes a lot of sense. Which is what was kind of confusing me when you were first talking about it.
No, of course, it's, you know, it's all things considered.
Yeah.
That is fucked.
But do you feel like the M4 and the AK are in a currently good spot with this change?
I don't know, I think I need to test it more. So right now, I don't really have an opinion on the... I mean, I had no issue. I quite like the M4A4 recoil anyway, because it was pretty straight, like the first, I don't know, 7 bullets or so. So if you haven't killed someone by that time, then you're doing something wrong. The AK I always had more trouble with, recoil-wise. But my actual my recoil control on the AK at the moment is not the best, so I need to practice that before going to town on it as well. But the bursting, in terms of like with the AK bursting and then follow-up tapping, like I really like that, because you can do it. I can do it faster than I need to, because it's kind of fine for that particular scenario where you're trying to, you know, burst or spray someone who's peeking, and then as they go away you stop and then try and tap them when they come in for a repeat. It's stronger now than it necessarily needs to be, which doesn't mean it needs to be nerfed. I'm just saying it's, you know, more than enough for the job at hand, basically. So yeah, I need to, you know, mess around with them some more. I have a different map where I can try and tap people who are moving and do tracking, but there isn't. The platform's quite small, so I don't know if we could both stand there. But anyway, I need to call the girlfriend, so I'll wrap this up for now. It looks really interesting. I'll put this on YouTube so people can digest it. It might be a bit long and boring, but there we go. It's there if they want to look at it.
Alright.
Thanks for showing it to me, though.
Alright, no problem.
Cool. Alright, I'll shut this down. I think I'll leave the stream on.
So ideally, the mod should be releasing on Friday, but I'm always going to be putting out new updates for it. So you know,
okay.
Feedback's always appreciated. I might change a few things before release if it's really dire. I mean, is there anything that was like completely out that stood out in terms of that needed to be changed to you?
Well, I want to go back and compare the FAMAS and the Galil and see, to try and figure out just how different they are, but it feels a bit weird to me, I don't know. I mean, I just started using it, so it's hard to say. But the thing that stands out to me the most is the double dink with the FAMAS. I didn't try burst fire, but I never used burst fire. I don't think it's really necessary to use that. I can't remember everything else we went through, but I think that probably stands out to me more than anything else. Yeah, but I want to go and compare it to how it was before, so then I can have like a good idea of where I think it is, basically.
Alright.
Alright, cool, thanks.
Alright, no problem.